everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of Attacker Productions. Today, Bank RPG once again by Jake, and today we got Brandon, who tops first at the Pro Play Tour PPG event in Louisville, Kentucky. It was an honor. Didn't get a chance to play against him, but he did place first, and he is kind of gracious of his presence.
I try to be super graceful in that kind of stuff.
Well, we're super excited to have you here, man. And looks like you played Gogeta Xeno. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your placing and how the event went for you before we get into it?
So pretty much in round one, I ended up facing my friend Connor, who is playing King Cold. Game one, I killed him turn two, because I had all the answers I needed, and just everything went off the way it needed to. Then game two, I ended up killing him turn three when I went off again, but he didn't have anything in his hand that he could really do anything with because his hand got flooded with field spells, or fields.
Sounds like my Gen Con run.
Yeah. Then after that, I want to say it was Android 21, in which case I went to game three in that one. I want to say I won game one pretty decently. Game two, I struggled and ended up losing that one because I believe I didn't see my thwartings fast enough and just ended up getting hit by negates left and right. Then in game three, I pushed through thanks to the secret rare, getting the job done by just locking them down from being able to do anything. And I proceed to kill them in time. Then after that was literally just going back and forth between U7 and Piccolo all the way into the last round. In which case, last round was top 8 placing Vegeta SS4 ramp.
Cody.
That I went against him. We went 2 games, I believe. In which case, game 1, I just threw down the blocker, kept him on board 3 turns to keep him from being able to ramp, and just finished him there and turn 3 or 4. Then in game 2, he went first. I tried to go for the blocker again, couldn't find him, but on the leader swing I drew the blocker, so I was able to get him down on my turn 1 again, in which case on his next turn he swung, I blocked, and then he used the Realm of the Gods blue card to just KO or bottom deck him away, in which case then he started to be able to ramp, but that still put him down a turn behind his plan, and I just pushed through that right then.
Yeah, that's such an, like, Nick and I, one of our teammates, were talking about that matchup earlier tonight, what Gogeta Xeno and SS4, like how that plays out. And I didn't even consider playing the blocker that way. So that's really interesting that you thought of that.
Yeah, me and my friend Cameron Judd, which shout out to him for the list and all that, because he helped me get ready for it, and we talked strategies with this deck and everything. Me and him were talking about it literally that morning, about if I face that deck, that would be my plan. Just get the blocker on board and just keep him on board and do what I can to stop him from being able to do damage with the leader. So, it just came down to strategizing and talking it over and planning it out overall.
Was Xeno Gogeta a deck that you had planned to play from the very beginning, or did you change to it at some point?
I've literally played that since it came out, back when it was bad.
Well, you work on a deck and practice long enough, new tech gets released, and then here you are, first place, man. So, how about we jump into the list?
Yeah. So the first card up here is the Overrealm for the deck, pretty much. It's the staple Overrealm for it. It used to be the one Trunks that he just goes to your hand if he's milled to your warp, which helped with consistency, but since they banned him, we've went with Time Regulator, because with him, where you don't have the consistency that you did with the old Trunks, you have more explosiveness due to this Trunks, and he just sets up a lot more stuff overall. Then next up we have SS4 Son Goku Beyond All Limits. He's fusion material. He also can grab whatever I need. Say thwarting goes to the warp, or I mill all my thwartings, or anything I need. Play him and grab what I need and use it however I need to. I've used him multiple times in a few of the matchups to grab my negates back to be able to use it.
Yeah, the utility and even just the design of this card is excellent, and I think it has a home in really a lot of black decks.
Yeah, it's just a good black staple if you can fit it in there. And this card here in this deck just has so much synergy to work with.
It's a perfect fit.
Next up, we have one of the fusions in here, Marvelous Might. I didn't use him too much overall compared to my other ones, but he helped me get through stuff, and he has barrier, so against U7 or Piccolo, when I need something that I want to make sure sticks on the board and can deal a damage, he answered the call just fine and pushed through it, and then played 1-drops if I needed them.
Yeah, I feel like this card is kind of positioned really well in the meta right now. It deals with a lot of things that are like kind of played to stop your strategy. Like you can use this against Yellow Trunks, for example, to just get around Poutine and everything since it's barrier. So,
and he can also help you pivot more into a 1-drop swarm strategy if you really need to switch to that instead of big beat sticks if you get violent raised or anything like that.
Yeah, just great way to pivot and just keep your foot on the gas.
That's pretty much what this deck's really about, just being able to pivot at the right times and answer their answers with better answers. Next up, we have the other 6-drop fusion that just works wonderfully in here. This is for Vegeta. With him, I would obviously either fuse him or use him just over him to rip a card out of their hand, which I usually did towards the later parts of the games when I did play him, to try to weaken them up, to try to set up with my big swing for game overall. Plus he's just a 30k beat stick himself. And then obviously the card in the deck.
Yeah, just super solid.
Yeah, he's pretty much self-explanatory. He does just about everything. Best 1-drop in the game. Just 25 double, warp something. Just so much it can do for so little energy.
Yeah, and this is one of those key cards when you're talking about being able to answer your opponent's answers. Like, playing around the thwarting is something that's just always on your mind in this matchup.
And then there's times too that I've even used thwarting as bait. Like I
Yeah.
just throw it out there and let them do something to it, just so I could play something else and pivot into another strategy that they end up not expecting because they're too busy worrying about thwarting.
Yeah, it's just a whole nother level of mind games.
Next up we have another new black staple that's just really good. Trunks, he really helps push for the turn 2, turn 3 kills. And he just pushes stuff back into the drop so that way you can use your big 6 drops overwhelms if you really want to instead. And they just, the combination between thwarting, that, a big overwhelm on board, that's a lot to answer if you don't see violent rays or anything that can stop me.
Oh yeah. Dual attack is just excellent right now as well.
Yeah, especially with Hatches running around, because I know one of the local players, David Applegate, who topped and got 3rd place, he was running Hatchiac, and he said that he's seen another Hatchiac running around. That's definitely the sleeper deck to watch out for, because there's not many answers to that deck itself.
Yeah, just by virtue of the way the leader works.
Yeah. Then, next up we have Super Kumeya. Kind of self-explanatory. If they try to floodgate you, hit them with that. If Piccolo's trying to new ruler you, hit him with that. Just disrupt their gameplay, especially with U7 and Piccolo. That card just disrupts so much with them overall. Next up, the one of SS4 Bardock fighting against Fates. That card's just good trying to push for game, especially if you play it on turn 2 with the Trunks and the thwarting on board.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of pressure.
Yeah, and this is what this deck tries to do, just tries to apply as much pressure as it can and just make them dump their hand to the point where they're busy worrying about your board and not your life, so much so that there's been plenty of times where I'm just sitting at 4 life going into turn 3, turn 4, where I can tap out and I was fine because they're busy trying to deal with my board because they're worried about the board more than trying to kill me.
Yeah, especially if you stick around 4 life where it's kind of shaky whether or not they'll be able to get there.
Yeah, and then if you have 2 of the Trunkses on board at the same time, along with the thwarting, then they're in panic mode at that point.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Support of the Dark Empire. I ended up citing that out almost every time. It's a card that I really wanted for the deck because Black needed a blocker negate. It does what it needs to. It will put you down to 4 life if you need to, gives you a blocker, and you just block with it, but I end up citing it out a lot of times for some of my answers in the meta.
Yeah, I had the same experience. I played against a lot of King Piccolo, and my blocker negates came out almost every game against them.
Yeah, U7 as well, it just came out of there as well, because if I played it, a lot of the times they had Piccolo Jr., so the moment I play it just dies instantly.
Yeah.
Next up, the Unison in this deck. He's extremely underrated. The number of times through the day that I went swing -2 big, then pay 3, play another one, swing again -2, and go for game with that just works perfectly. Or push them down to 1 life.
Yeah, it's just an excellent card. I know a lot of people play the Pycon in this list, but it seems you're convicted that the Mira is the way to go, and after hearing that, I'm pretty well convinced myself.
Yeah, with thwarting in the deck and that being your primary basis, Mira is better. Say they hit thwarting in some kind of way and he's just not as impactful, or he's no good anymore, or he's banned, then I would probably switch over to Pycon and throw Marvelous Smites back into the deck and go more so with the 1-drop beatdowns in the deck. But with the current meta, with the cards available, Mira just seems like the right choice right now.
And thinking about it, typically the Pycon package is like 8 cards in itself because people want to play the Kais of it as well. This saves you 4 extra spots now to put something else in there.
Well, I still use the Kais because the Kais are just useful because you can play Mira off the Kais.
Oh, snap. I forgot about that. Yeah, you can. Yeah. Never mind.
Next up, we've got this negate, which you can grab right off of Beyond All Limits, and just being able to grab that, super useful against U7 when they play the dual attack Frieza and they try to swing once and you just kick it away for the turn and not have to worry about it because U7 can punch your face just as hard as you can theirs if you're not careful. And this helps you not just get punished for tapping out or going down to 1 energy.
Yeah, and being able to recycle those, it's like new age power bursting for that old 1-drop Goku negate.
That was pretty much my signature back in the day. If you ask Connor, one of my friends, about it, his mind would literally melt every time I would do that because essentially I'm turning 8 negates into 12 negates and just negating everything from him, and he's losing his mind because I'm doing all that. Everyone at my shop, that's what I was known for. And whenever I ran a black deck, that was the first question. Am I running 4 power bursts for making entrances?
Yeah, making an entrance. Yeah, that's.
That I love that card so much. I
Oh
have
yeah.
multiple play sets of it, the event pack version, the pre-release version, just all of it, because that I love that card back in the day. Playing it in Hatch 2
Yeah.
back in the day was
Yeah,
just
that's
raw.
what I was just about to bring up. Is that I still use that combo in Hatchiac.
Yeah, it's a tough combo to beat, especially in that deck. Next up, the Secret Rare. This Secret Rare literally won half of my games I played. So there were times that in the matchups, I'd use Mira or something to knock them down to 1 life, play her. The moment they read her, they just scooped immediately. A lot of the times, because when she's played, outside the leader swing, every other swing, they have to send 1 of their life to the drop. Well, if they got 1 life, they can only swing with their leader, at which point they can't do anything, and they just fall so far behind that next turn I just wipe them.
Yeah, better to save the time and just try and pick it up in the next game. Really
Yeah.
solid choice. I've seen a few Gogeta Xeno players playing this card, but I don't think it's popular yet. Well, it's going to be now, but I don't think it's the popular choice as of yet.
Honestly, I think in this particular deck, this is better than Pen. It will flat out stop stuff. You're at 4 life anyways a lot of times when you go to play her, so you're not necessarily worried about their leader swing. Pen, they can still swing a couple more times after you've played her. Plus, she's not as big of a threat as Kai is.
Yeah,
I got a chance.
I would agree with that.
I got a chance to play with Kai today. Actually, absolutely loved it. So
Yeah, I would pick this Kai in this deck any day over Pen in this setup. And meta. Next up, we got Fearless Fusion, the answer to SS4 Vegeta. Just plain and simple, 1-drop blocker.
absolutely,
Warp something scary that has barrier, and he sticks around usually.
absolutely disgusting card. I love it. As an AOD player, I hate it though.
Yeah, it's a really good card that will put down AOD because Bobbity.
Yep. Then it goes to warp, so you cannot. It's hard to recover that card.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, any deck that relies on 1-drops has to completely rework their game plan when you're up against a Black Saiyan leader because this Fearless Fusion exists.
Yeah, it's just a tough card overall. Not many answers to that card in anything other than blue overall.
Yeah, it's really solid.
Next up, Supreme Kai. Grab Mira off of it. Self-explanatory, you can pitch her off Mira to set up the next Mira if you need to, unless you're paying 3 for Mira and just hitting them. She works as intended. At 4, she's fine number.
Yeah, and correct me. Never mind. Go ahead. Continue. I'm sorry.
You're fine. Next up, we've got this Goku. I almost never played him through the day overall, because the other 1-drop Goku's better, but need multiple Gokus to try to work stuff out more. Multiple ways to get more 1-drops on board. Plus he gets 10,000 whenever they draw from a non-leader skill. So, he can quickly become a threat if they're not careful off of the leader skill, them drawing, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I've seen this card get big a few times, and you don't really expect it to be a problem, so you just let it get the boost, and then you don't really realize how big it's getting until it swings at you for 35.
Yeah, that's always the funny part, when they just look at it and then they don't expect it. Next up, the Erotic Goku with Unique now. Deflect, take a life, gains 10,000, and then the more important effect, if they activate a counter, they have to warp a card from hand. That card was great against the U7s and Piccolos. Put them on board, punish them for violent rays and then hit them with a bunch of 1-drops. Hit them with Mira in the process, Leader, Trunks Overwhelm, just that with all the other cards just really worked well together.
Like you were saying before, just really a lot of different ways to react to what your opponent's playing and just keep on the gas.
Yeah, there's so much synergy all in this deck that everything works really fluently together in this. Next up, we've got the Vegeta that pairs with them. If they untap energy using non-awakened skill, warp a card. This was great against Android 21, where they've untapped stuff, and then I got to warp a card from their hand because Dimension Magic, Sensu Bean, just all those things. It works well as baits as well against those decks in particular.
Yeah, it's gonna draw removal from blue players, and then in matchups where you don't need it, it's also just easy to pitch it for fusion or row it to the energy if you need to.
Yeah, and then you can also use it with Marvelous Might and use it to try to awaken quicker if you need to. Then we have the super combo that is also a big synergy piece in this. It just works well, it does everything you need it to. It just perfect combination with the deck. And then the perfect combination of the classic Mira Champa. Throw him in there, make Mira real big. They think it's okay, they're gonna just take 1 life, then you hit them with the double.
Yep.
Yeah, and now it's on a Unison, so it's even harder to interact with than old Mira was.
Yeah, it just makes it so much better. As long as they don't have a way to kill the Mira off or ping a marker off, he's almost guaranteed to hit if they don't negate.
I think we talked earlier in the week, and Furthering Destruction Champa is probably responsible for more wins than any other card in the game.
That is true.
It gets to a point where a lot of players will typically not go to 2 life in fear of a Champa being a problem.
Or when you're comboing big to get them down to 1 life, they proceed to go and ask, is there a Champa coming? You're just like, no, just a big Mira afterwards.
Yeah.
Just another 145,000.
What was your sideboard?
So my sideboard, we had 1 Massane Brainwash No More. I ended up not really using him, surprisingly, because he was in there for some of those decks that played those big threats that are going to just wipe my life, but if they don't get to that point, you kind of don't need it. Then I had him there. I tried to use him against Piccolo or any of them that I could really use to disrupt their play. Of course, every time I sighted him in, I never saw him.
Yeah.
Next up, we had the other Super Kamea, which obviously U7 King Piccolo works well against.
Yeah, this is good for your yellow matchup too, to stop the Frieza.
Yeah, and if you're going against Sin, good way to stop 1-drops from hitting the board before they cause havoc on you.
Yeah.
Next up, 2 max power Kameas, strictly for Sin matchup pretty much. Just they get the 9-drop on board, you go get rid of it, they play the 4-drop afterwards, you play the blocker Gogeta and warp the 4-drop away afterwards. It's a good combo piece if you need it.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna get to draw a couple cards if you hit the 9 with this, but overall you don't really care about that. You're gonna force them to combo them away anyway.
Yeah, plus the longer the 9-drop stays around, the more trouble you're going to be in, because at that point you're playing with Summoning Sickness and you're falling a turn behind no matter what you do the longer he's on board.
Yeah, your opponent's playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And you're playing Magic.
Essentially, yeah. Next up, another Kai. A lot of times I went and brought her in, or my other cyborg card, Petrification, whenever I felt like I needed to make sure swings didn't come through at me, or if I needed to get something else off of the board in the process. This card also makes U7 think about if they really want to play the Vegeta or the Goku, or no, the Vegeta specifically, and make sure they try to hit it or not die from it, because there's been a number of times that they're at 4 energy. The Vegeta's right in the drop, ready for them to grab off their leader skill, but they don't, because they don't want to lose their Vegeta, because the moment they tap out for it and it fails, they will proceed to die next turn.
Yeah. I had an opponent who was being cautious and paid for the Vegeta and just blew it up to remove my board. They didn't even want to swing in and have something happen to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of fear going around when they play that 4 cost and he's just sitting there, and they can swing with it and risk it losing it completely, or they have to get rid of it in order to not really lose any value off of it, even though they're losing value from not swinging with it.
Yeah, losing a ton of value. Especially against your deck, where if they tap out to board wipe you, you probably just kill them on the crackback.
Oh yeah, especially if I have another thwarting in hand. Number of times where they've cleared my trunks and my thwarting that's on board, and I have a thwarting in hand and another trunks in warp, just ready to throw them back out. Swing with them and Mira, because Mira was still on board and they focused on the board more than Mira too. And then Secret Rare to put them out, to keep them at 1 life where they did nothing, because he just wrecks havoc all over everything if you hit them right with it.
Yeah, just an overall excellent deck choice for the meta, I think.
Next up, we have the one of SS4 thwarting. I put the one of in there specifically for the very slim off chance I'd face Hatchiac. I'm probably going to fit more of him into here for the Hatchiac matchup, since that seems to start to sneak up here soon, and I think it's really sleeper that I just have to put stuff in there to get ready to answer it once everyone realizes how good Hatch really is right now.
Yeah, maybe you can get rid of the Brainwash since you didn't really use it that much, and then you have at least 2 of these in the board.
Yeah, right now I'm thinking I'm going to take out that Brainwash along with these to put in 2 of the Gogetas and 2 of the 8-drop Fu where you pay for, and then he has that permanent where they have to pay for skills by pitching cards.
Dark Banisher, yeah, that card's excellent.
And that's just going to shut down Hatchiac if I have to face it, because it's going to be a long game anyway, so paying for is going to literally be nothing at that point.
Yeah.
Next up, Petrification, another card that U7 and Piccolo's scared of. They go big and they just pay for it if I hit them with this card.
Yeah, we've talked about this card a ton on the channel. Just the unique wording of it, where your opponent's cards can't activate skills, really messes with a lot of the stuff in the meta right now, especially that big 8-drop UI.
Yeah, the whole can't activate skills thing is what got 10-drop Fu banned, because people think if you get to turn 6, the game doesn't have to end.
Yeah.
10-drop Fu, he was fine.
Yeah, I go back and forth on Fu. Whenever I'm playing a deck where I could fit him in, I feel like he shouldn't have been banned, and then whenever I'm playing something a little more aggressive, I'm glad he's gone.
It's one of those things that I've experienced, that if he's there, if he's still around, then he's one of those things where the game has to end at some point. He's a good way to end the game, because I mean, at 6 energy, the game has to end.
Yeah, and it's not like he was deflect or anything egregious.
Yeah, like literally the only deck that got to really play it early is SS4 Vegeta. And that was the only deck that didn't really play it on turn 6. They played it more turn 4. but everyone else would have to play it turn 6. So
Yeah.
it was fine.
And with that in the list, you run the risk of missing a ramp too.
Yeah. But it's one of those things where, as a one of, when I ran it in that deck, it was fine. Like, most of the time I didn't see it in there. That, like, one time I ended up seeing it on top. It was kind of like an oh well situation that I just worked around it at that point.
Yeah. It's not that big of a deal, I suppose.
And then the final card in the sideboard, Kusukai, he just stops them from playing stuff on your turn. It works pretty well against King Piccolo. And it will help you fix your hand if you need to. Just perfect way to take care of stuff that your opponent might do on your turn.
Yeah. I think this card is good against every color.
Yeah, pretty much, because blue has their battle card counterattacks that they'll play. It works good against the SS4 Vegeta. It works well.
Yeah, excellent choice. I actually bought some of these after seeing how many people were playing them in their sideboard last Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just a good staple, especially with how cheap it is now. If you can get it, it's worth putting in at least 2 of in your sideboard.
That's great advice.
So once again, do appreciate the list, and congratulations.
Yeah, first place, man.
I never expected it to happen, because like in round 6, guy takes his last 2 life, and we're literally tied at life. They call time right at that time. So I turn to the judge. Well, we both turn to the judge. We're like, what now? And then we go based on what was on the battlefield. Yep. He had nothing on board, and I had 2 guys on board. Yep. One of them being my barrier Gogeta. So then as I realize I've won, I'm quickly trying to side out, and the judge is just like, and pairings for the next round are up.
Oh, man.
I don't get time to process anything. I'm quickly trying to take my sideboard out and all that, and then Cody sits down in front of me. It's like, okay, I need to calm down. The adrenaline's going. This is final round. All my friends are walking by me, wishing me luck, telling me that I can do it, that I can get first place, go undefeated, and all that. Just all the pressure at that moment.
Yeah. Sometimes that helps, and sometimes it doesn't, you know?
Yeah.
Car ride on the way up probably helps. Round 7 in the hot seat, maybe not as much.
Yeah, there was a lot of weight on my shoulders in that last hour.
Yeah.
Well, you carried it, and you carried it like Atlas, man. Like, congratulations.
Thank you.
So with that being said, thank you all for tuning in. Keep in mind, there's buttons. They're there. Click them for a reason. Last words.
Shout out to Cameron, who helped me with this list, my locals who helped me practice and get ready for this, helping me face all the matchups I might run into, just everyone helping as a team to try to help each other out. Vegeta Saiyan Army for the mats and just being there, all that good stuff. And that's about it.
Well, once again, man, congratulations, and hope to see you again in the future sometime.
Yep, you too, for sure.